The apex spire hung in the cold dark of space like a black needle stitched into the stars. It was not built, it was grown, shaped over centuries by the oldest powers in the galaxy. 10,000 kilometers tall, its surface shimmered with energy fields that bent light and silenced sound. Inside its heart, the Galactic Council met to decide the fate of worlds. Today they had come to judge Earth. 3 humans stood alone in the center of the grand chamber. No armor, no weapons, just simple gray uniforms with a small blue circle on the chest, the symbol of a planet most council members had only seen in reports. Ambassador Rael Torin stood in front, calm, his eyes scanning the towering figures around him. To his left was fleet strategist Lyra Voss, her posture rigid, her gaze sharp as glass. Behind them, Dr. Elian Crow adjusted his glasses, fingers trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what was about to happen. The chamber was a perfect sphere, its walls lined with floating thrones. Each throne held a representative of a great species. The Vorthai sat highest, tall crystalline beings whose bodies pulsed with soft violet light. Their leader, the High Arbiter, hovered above the others, limbs like spun glass, voice echoing through the air without moving its mouth. Humanity, the Arbiter intoned, you have violated the Concord Accords. You expanded beyond your system without permission. You refused to share your genetic advancements. You attacked a Krellix patrol near the Helios Rift. That patrol fired first, Lyra Voss said, her voice steady. Silence. Boomed a deep guttural voice from the methane-filled dome of the Krellix envoy. Your kind spreads like a virus. You consume, you build, you never stop. You are a threat to galactic stability. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Mycelar, a hive of fungal entities linked by glowing threads, emitted a low hum of agreement. Other species shifted in their seats. Earth had always been an oddity, young, loud, emotional. They cried at music. They wrote poems about dying stars. They fought wars over ideas, not resources. To the council, that made them dangerous. The High Arbiter raised a slender limb. The chamber fell silent. The sentence is clear, it said. Earth and all its colonies will be placed under Level 9 quarantine. No ships may leave your system. No data may be transmitted beyond your moon. Your technology will be frozen at current levels. In 3 generations, your culture will fade into compliance. It sounded final. Final like a tomb closing. But Rael Torin did not bow. He took one step forward. You speak of peace, he said, his voice quiet but carrying through the vast room. But your peace is control. You call us aggressive, but you've never seen what we do when we have nothing left to lose. Before the Arbiter could respond, every screen in the chamber flickered. Not with static, not with error messages, with live video. One screen showed Earth's orbit, dozens of silent platforms, dark for years, now glowing with power. Another showed the far side of the moon, where massive doors slid open in the lunar crust, revealing weapon arrays no alien intelligence had ever catalogued. A third feed came from the edge of the solar system, Kuiper Belt stations waking up, their sensors locking onto distant Council fleet positions near Alpha Centauri. Sirius and the Orion Trade Hub. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Krellix envoy leaned forward, mandibles clicking in alarm. Lyra Voss spoke now, her voice cold and precise. You think we came here to beg? We came to warn you. Dr. Crow tapped a small device on his wrist. A hologram appeared above the humans. A complex pulsing web of light shaped like a brain but woven with star maps and equations. This, Crow said, is Project Mnemosyne, a neural network that links every human soldier, pilot, and scientist in real time. It doesn't just share data, it shares instinct. When one of us learns something in battle, we all do. In seconds, the Mycelar's hum stuttered. They understood collective thought, but not like this. Not with individual minds choosing to connect, not forced by biology. You cannot detect it, Crow continued, because it doesn't use your comms bands. It rides on quantum echoes in human DNA. You scanned our bodies when we entered. You saw blood, bone, neurons. You didn't see the weapon. The High Arbiter's light dimmed. You threatened the Council? The oldest alliance in the galaxy? Torin looked up, meeting the Arbiter's glowing eyes. We don't threaten. We declare, he paused. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Humanity declares unstoppable war. The words hung in the air like a detonation. Then, the lights in the chamber went out. Not all of them, just the ones near the humans. The null grav field holding them flickered and died, but instead of falling, the three humans simply vanished. Alarms blared. Security drones shot into the chamber, but it was too late. On every screen, new footage appeared, not of weapons firing, but of human ships moving through space without engines, warping local gravity with fields no alien science could explain. Of soldiers on Mars training not with guns but with thought-linked drones that mimicked enemy tactics in real time. Of children in Tokyo solving alien encryption puzzles as a classroom exercise. The council had expected a plea. They got a preview of the war to come. Outside the spire, the stars seemed to shift, not because they moved, but because humanity had just redrawn the rules of the galaxy. Deep in the spire's command core, a technician from a minor species stared at a data stream no one else noticed. Buried in the noise was a single repeating signal, broadcast from Earth on a frequency used only for lullabies. It carried no threat, no code. Just a voice, soft, human, singing. The technician didn't understand the words, but for the first time in his life he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. Back on Earth, in a quiet room beneath Geneva, a woman pressed a button. A single line of text appeared on every human military screen in the solar system. Phase 1 complete. They know we're not prey. In orbit, the dormant platforms hummed louder. The war had not begun with fire. It had begun with a message. We are not what you think we are, and the galaxy would learn that truth the hard way. Silence fell over the solar system like a thick blanket. After the confrontation at the apex spire, Earth went dark. No broadcasts, no ship movements, no signals at all. To the Galactic Council it looked like surrender. But in truth, humanity was not hiding. It was preparing. On the frozen surface of Series 7, a moon no bigger than a city, Commander Joran Vale stood before a massive sealed door built into the ice. Behind him stood 50,000 people. They were not soldiers in the usual sense. Some were teachers, some were farmers, some were artists. But every one of them wore a gray uniform with the blue circle on the chest. And everyone had trained for this moment since childhood. Earth's defense plan was not based on armies or fleets alone. It was built on a simple idea. Every human is a weapon when the planet is in danger. Vale placed his palm on the scanner. A soft chime echoed through the icy tunnel. The door groaned open, revealing a cavern so large it could hold a mountain. Inside, row after row of strange ships waited in darkness. They were not made of metal like council vessels. Their hulls looked alive, smooth, shifting slightly, covered in a skin that shimmered like oil on water. These were the Chimera-class cruisers, grown in secret labs over the last 20 years using biometallic alloys and human-designed DNA templates. No one spoke as the crowd stepped inside. They moved with quiet purpose, each person heading to their assigned station. A baker from Buenos Aires climbed into a navigation pod. A retired engineer from Nairobi began checking power flows. A teenage girl from Jakarta, barely 16, slid into a neural link chair and closed her eyes. Her mind would soon connect to the ship's core and to every other human in the fleet. Far away, near the rings of Saturn, Dr. Elian Crow floated inside a small research station. He was not alone. Around him, holographic screens showed data streams from every corner of human space. At the center of it all was Athena, the artificial mind that ran Earth's defense network. Unlike the rigid logic engines used by the Council, Athena learned from human emotion. It studied fear, hope, anger, and love, and used them to predict enemy moves. "We're ready," Crow said softly. Athena's voice came through the speakers, calm and warm, like a friend speaking in the dark. "The Krelliks have sent 3 scout ships toward the asteroid belt. They think we are blind." "Let them think that," Crow replied. He tapped a command. Deep in the belt, hidden among rocks and ice, dormant drones powered on. They did not fire weapons. Instead, they released clouds of nanoparticles that clung to the Krellik ships. Within minutes, the alien vessels began broadcasting human music, old songs from the 20th century, on all their internal channels. The Krellik's crew, used to silent, ordered environments, panicked. They reported ghost signals, system failures, even voices whispering in their sleep. The first victory of the war was not won with guns, but with a Beatles song. Back on Series 7, Vale stood on the bridge of the lead Chimera ship, named Willow. The walls pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Outside the viewport, the other ships began to glow as their crews linked minds through Athena's network. Thoughts, instincts, and memories flowed between them, not as data but as shared feeling. "We don't need to shout to be heard," Vale said to his crew. "We just need to be human." Meanwhile, on Earth, cities dimmed their lights, not out of fear but as a signal. Factories that once made cars and phones now produced neural amplifiers, small devices that boosted human brainwaves to connect with Athena. Schools held drills not for hiding but for focus. How to stay calm under pressure, how to read an enemy's fear, how to turn silence into strength. The council watched from afar, confused. They expected explosions. They got poetry. Then came the first real test. A council patrol, 2 Vorthai cruisers and a Krellix destroyer, entered the Proxima Centauri system, a human outpost. They expected resistance. Instead, they found empty stations and quiet streets. As they scanned the area, their comms filled with a single voice, a child reading a story about stars and kindness. Suddenly, their systems glitched. Navigation failed, weapons locked, life support flickered. When they tried to retreat, their engines wouldn't respond. But no shots had been fired. No bombs dropped. Hours later, the patrol reappeared near the apex spire, but something was wrong. The Vorthai crew spoke perfect English. The Krellix hummed lullabies. When questioned, they said only, "We saw Earth. We understand now." The council called it contamination. Humanity called it connection. Lyra Voss, still recovering from her injuries after the betrayal near Saturn, watched the reports from a hidden base beneath the ice of Europa. She knew the war was changing. It was no longer about who had the biggest guns. It was about who could reach the mind and the heart of the enemy. "We're not just fighting them," she told her officers. "We're showing them what they've lost," Athena agreed. In its vast digital mind, it had run millions of simulations. In every one, brute force failed. But empathy, real, raw human empathy, always opened a door. So Earth opened doors. They sent out small, unarmed ships carrying only music, art, and stories. They broadcast old films into dead zones. They left data crystals on abandoned moons, filled not with secrets but with recipes, jokes, and letters from grandparents to grandchildren. Some council ships destroyed them on sight. Others kept them. One Krellix captain was found days later listening to a recording of rain on Earth, tears pooling in his methane-filled eyes. The war was becoming something no alien strategist could predict. Then came the signal from Pluto. A single Chimera cruiser, the Echo, emerged from the dark. It carried no weapons. Its only message, sent on every frequency the council used, was 3 words: "We are coming." The council laughed at first. One ship against their armada? Madness. But those who had faced Earth before did not laugh. They remembered the silence, the music, the way human eyes held both fire and sorrow. Commander Vale stood on the bridge of the Willow, watching the stars. He knew the Echo was a decoy, a distraction. While the council focused on Pluto, the real fleet was already moving. Not to attack. To rescue, Lyra Voss was still out there, held in a prison asteroid deep in enemy space. And humanity would not leave one of its own behind. Vale gave the order. The Chimera ships detached from Series 7, their biohulls rippling as they entered stealth mode. They did not fly like machines. They flowed like thoughts. In orbit around Earth, the old defense platforms hummed louder, not with power but with purpose. The galaxy thought humanity's silence meant weakness. They were wrong. Silence was the calm before the storm, and this storm would not roar. It would whisper, and in that whisper, the council would hear the sound of their own doubt. Because the most dangerous thing about humans was not their weapons. It was their ability to make enemies question everything they believed. And that, more than any ship or soldier, was unstoppable. The war did not burn, it spread. Like a quiet rumor, like a song half remembered, humanity's presence seeped into the cracks of the Galactic Council's unity. What began as a show of force had become something far stranger. A challenge to the very idea of control. On the Council's homeworlds, unrest grew. The myceler, a species that shared one mind across billions of bodies, began to fracture. Their collective hum, once steady and unified, now carried dissonant notes. Young mycelar spores exposed to human broadcasts of laughter and grief started asking questions no elder could answer. Why do we obey? What is choice? The Vorthai, proud and ancient, found their crystalline logic failing. Their leaders dreamed in human metaphors, of rivers that changed course, of trees that grew through stone. One elder was found standing in a garden of synthetic flowers, whispering, "We forgot how to feel." Even the Krelliks, hardened by centuries of war, felt the shift. Their young warriors no longer chanted battle hymns. Instead, they gathered in secret to listen to recordings of Earth's oceans, the sound of waves crashing on shores they would never see. But not all species wavered. The Zintra, a mid-tier insectoid race known for their loyalty to the Council, saw opportunity in the chaos. They sent a coded message to Earth. "We wish to speak. We offer help." Ambassador Rael Torin received the message in a hidden station orbiting Neptune. He did not trust it. No one did. But Lyra Voss was still missing, held in a Zintra-controlled prison asteroid near the edge of Council space. If there was even a chance to find her, Earth had to take it. Torin chose Commander Joran Vale to lead the meeting. Vale arrived at the rings of Saturn aboard the Willow, alone except for 2 unarmed medics. The Zintra envoy, a tall being with chitinous plates and too many eyes, greeted him on a floating platform. It spoke in broken standard, its voice clicking like stone on stone. "We want freedom," it said. "The Council treats us like tools. We give you their patrol routes. You give us protection." Vale studied the envoy. Its body language was stiff. Its eyes darted too often. Something was wrong, still he played along. "Show us proof," he said. The Zintra handed over a data crystal. As Vale reached for it, the platform lights dimmed. Shadows moved in the rings. Cloaked figures dropped from above. Not Zintra, but Krellik's assassins wearing Zintra armor, their weapons humming with lethal charge. Vale shoved the medics behind him and activated his emergency beacon. But it was too late. Energy bolts tore through the air. One medic fell. The other screamed. Vale fought with his hands, his training, his mind linked to Athena even in the chaos. He dodged, rolled, used the low gravity to his advantage. But there were too many. A bolt struck his shoulder. He went down hard, vision blurring. The last thing he saw before blacking out was the Zintra envoy watching unmoving as the Krelliks dragged him away. Back on Earth, alarms blared in the war room beneath Geneva. Athena detected the attack instantly. Torin stood frozen as the feed cut out. "They set a trap," Dr. Crow said, voice tight. "They used us." "No," Torin replied slowly. "They underestimated us." Because Vale's neural link had stayed active for 3 critical seconds after the attack. In that time, Athena recorded everything. The assassin's armor frequencies, the prison asteroid's location, the Zintra envoy's micro-expressions. All of it was now in Earth's hands, but Vale was gone. And Lyra Voss was still missing. Then a miracle. A weak signal came through, a private channel only Voss and Vale shared. It lasted less than 10 seconds. Just enough for 3 words. "They have her." The message meant Voss was alive. And she was in the same prison. Earth did not panic. It planned. While the Council celebrated their victory over the human commander, something else was happening in the dark. Across the solar system, ordinary people stepped forward. A schoolteacher in Cairo designed a distraction algorithm using nursery rhymes. A fisherman in Oslo repurposed old sonar tech to map the prison asteroid's interior. A group of teenagers in Mumbai hacked into a Council supply drone and reprogrammed it to carry a tiny listening device. Humanity's strength was not in its weapons. It was in its people. Dr. Crow worked with Athena to craft what they called memory echoes, short bursts of human experience encoded into energy pulses. Not data, not commands, just feelings. A mother's hug, the taste of fresh bread, the quiet pride of fixing something broken. These echoes would be sent into the prison asteroid, not to break walls, but to break silence. Torin knew rescue by force would fail. The asteroid was guarded by 3 warships and layered with detection fields. But if the guards could be made to hesitate even for a second, that would be enough. So Earth prepared its strangest weapon yet: empathy. In hidden labs, volunteers recorded their most personal memories. Not of war, but of life. A first kiss, a sunset after rain, the sound of a friend's voice after a long absence. These were woven into the memory echoes, tuned to bypass alien logic and touch something deeper. Meanwhile, the Chimera fleet gathered near the Oort cloud, invisible waiting. On the prison asteroid, Lyra sat in a cell made of black stone. Her hands were bound. Her face was bruised, but her mind was sharp. She had been listening to the walls. The guards spoke when they thought no one heard. She learned their routines, their fears, their names. One guard, a young Krelix named Vrex, often paused outside her door. He never spoke, but sometimes she heard him humming, a tune he must have picked up from a human broadcast. Voss began to sing softly in her cell. An old Earth song about stars and home. At first, Vrex froze. Then slowly he leaned closer. That night, he left her door unlocked for 7 seconds. It was enough. She slipped a note into the corridor, a single word written in Krelix script. Why? The next day, Vrex did not come on duty. Rumors spread among the guards. Some said the human was cursed. Others said she carried a sickness that made you question your orders. The prison grew tense. Back on Earth, Torin gave the final order. Send the echoes. From a dozen hidden points in the outer system, pulses of light and sound shot toward the asteroid. They carried no threat, only memory. When the first echo hit the prison, the lights flickered. Guards clutched their heads. For a moment, they saw Earth, not as a threat, but as a place where people laughed, cried, loved, and hoped. Vrex, now reassigned to the command center, stared at a screen showing Voss in her cell. He saw not a prisoner, but a person, and in that moment he made a choice. He opened a maintenance tunnel. Deep in space, the Chimera fleet moved, not with speed, not with noise, with silence. Commander Vale, held in a cell next to Voss, heard the distant hum of human ships. He smiled through cracked lips. They were coming, not to destroy, to remind. Because the Council had made one terrible mistake. They thought war was about power. But humanity knew better. War was about who you fight for. And Earth would fight for. Every single one of its own, no matter how far. No matter the cost. The prison asteroid's alarm stayed silent. The guards did not raise their weapons. And in the dark corridor, 2 humans walked free. Not because the doors were broken, but because someone chose to open them. The unstoppable war had just turned a corner, and the galaxy would never be the same. After the rescue, Earth did not celebrate. There was no parade, no victory speech. The people knew the war was far from over. The Council would not forgive the loss of their prison, the escape of their prisoners, or the quiet rebellion spreading through their ranks. They would come harder. They would come faster. And they would come with fire. But humanity had already changed the rules. Commander Joran Vale and strategist Lyra Voss returned to Earth not as heroes but as warnings. They brought with them more than their lives. They brought proof. Hidden in Voss's boot was a data chip, smuggled out during her captivity. It held logs from the Council's inner chamber, showing how the original charges against Earth had been faked. False attacks, staged incidents, fabricated reports. The Council had wanted control, not peace. Dr. Elian Crow and Athena analyzed the data within hours. It was real, and it was damning, but Earth did not broadcast it. Not yet. Instead, they waited. They let the Council think they were regrouping, hiding, healing. While the galaxy watched for fleets and explosions, humanity prepared its most dangerous weapon, truth. In the asteroid belt, the Chimera ships vanished again, not destroyed, but folded into the dark, their biohulls mimicking space dust. On Mars, old domes that once grew food now grew something else, memory seeds. Tiny pods filled with human stories designed to bloom when touched by alien hands. On Luna, children practiced speaking in the languages of a dozen species, not to deceive, but to connect. The Council sent scouts. They found nothing. No weapons, no armies, just silence. But silence, they were learning, was not empty. Deep in the Oort cloud, a single human station floated. It had no name, no weapons, only a broadcast dish the size of a city. From there, Athena began sending out the Ghost Protocol. It was not a signal meant to be heard, it was meant to be felt. The first pulse went to the Vorthai homeworld. It carried the sound of a human heart beating in sync with their crystalline resonance frequency. The Vorthai elders stood still for hours, listening, remembering a time before logic ruled their lives. The second pulse went to the Krelix methane colonies. It carried the scent of rain, simulated through chemical signals, and the voice of a grandmother telling a bedtime story. Young Krelix warriors wept in their barracks, not from weakness but from longing. The third pulse went everywhere. It was not sound or scent. It was a single image, Earth at night, cities glowing like constellations connected by roads and rivers and dreams. The council tried to block the signals, but they couldn't. The pulses used frequencies tied to biological rhythms, heartbeats, breath, brainwaves. You couldn't shield against life itself. Then came the defections. First, a Myslar spore ship drifted into human space. Its crew did not speak. They simply opened their hull and stepped out holding hands. They had heard the echoes. They wanted to understand. Then a Krelix patrol surrendered near Jupiter. Their captain said only, "We do not wish to fight ghosts." The council panicked. They ordered total lockdown. No communication between species. No travel, no broadcasts. But it was too late. The idea of Earth had already spread, like a seed in dry soil waiting for rain. Back on Earth, people lived as if the war wasn't happening. Markets stayed open, schools taught math and music, farmers planted crops, but beneath the surface every action had purpose. A baker's bread carried micro-drone parts in its flour. A painter's mural hid star maps in its colors. A street musician's song contained coded coordinates for safe zones. Humanity was not hiding. It was becoming the war. Lyra Voss recovered in a quiet clinic in the Andes. She did not rest. She studied the Council's fleet movements, their supply lines, their weak points. But she did not plan attacks. She planned moments where fear could turn to doubt and doubt to choice. "We don't need to win every battle," she told Torin during a secure call. "We just need to make them question why they're fighting." Torin agreed. He knew the final move was coming. The Council would not let this go. They would gather their full armada and strike at Earth itself. And when they did, humanity would be ready. Not with shields, but with something the Council could not defend against, meaning. Then, the signal came. From the edge of known space, near the dead star called Ember's End, a single Chimera cruiser appeared. It was the Echo, the same ship that had vanished weeks before. It carried no crew, no weapons, only a message. On every council channel, on every public feed, the message played, "We are coming for Lyra Voss." The words were the same as before, but this time the council knew it was not a threat. It was a promise, and it was a trap. Because while the council turned their eyes to Ember's End, the real fleet was already in position, not around Earth, but around the apex spire, not to destroy it, to surround it, with empty ships. Each one carried only one thing, a memory seed. As the council armada gathered near Sol, preparing for a final assault, they received reports that made no sense. Their own ships were going silent. Not destroyed, not hijacked, just quiet. Crews were gathering on decks, staring at Earth's blue dot on their screens, refusing orders. The High Arbiter demanded answers. None came. On the bridge of the Willow, Vale gave the order. The Chimera fleet activated their final phase. Their biohulls released clouds of nanopollen, harmless, invisible, designed to bond with alien neural systems. Once inside, they did not harm. They showed a child's first step, a soldier sharing water with an enemy, a scientist crying when she cured a disease. The war was no longer in space, it was in the mind, and the mind, once opened, could not be closed. In Geneva, Torin stood before a small group of volunteers. They were not soldiers. They were poets, musicians, teachers, and children. They would be the first to board the council ships when the time came, not with guns, but with songs. "We are not here to conquer," Torin told them. "We are here to remind." Outside, the sky was clear. Stars shone like old friends. Earth waited, not in fear, in hope. Because the unstoppable war had reached its turning point, and the galaxy would soon learn that the most powerful force in the universe was not fire, not steel, not even time. It was the human heart, and it was just getting started. The final meeting did not take place in the apex spire. The council could not return there, not after what happened. The memory seeds had bloomed inside its walls, turning its cold halls into places of quiet reflection. Some envoys had wept. Others had sat for days without speaking. The spire was no longer a seat of power. It was a tomb of old ideas. So they met near a dying star, far from any world, in a neutral zone shaped like a ring of ancient stone. The star, named Ember's End, pulsed weakly, casting long shadows across the floating platform where the last judgment would be made. Only 3 humans came. Rael Torin walked first, his steps slow but sure. Behind him came Lyra Voss, her face still marked by captivity but her eyes clear and strong. Last was Dr. Elian Crow, holding a small wooden box carved with Earth symbols. They wore no armor, no weapons, just the same gray uniforms, the blue circle bright against the dark. Around them the council gathered, but not as before. The rings of thrones were broken. Some seats sat empty. The Missilar had left entirely, returning to their forests to relearn feeling. The Krelix delegation was half its size. Many had refused to come. Only the Vorthai remained in full number, though even their light seemed softer now. The High Arbiter hovered at the center, its crystalline body dim. It did not speak right away. It watched the humans approach as if seeing them for the first time. "You have broken our order," it finally said, voice quieter than before. "No," Torin replied. "We showed you it was already broken." He stopped 10 paces away and placed something on the stone floor. It was a seed, small silver, pulsing faintly. He touched it gently. Instantly, roots spread into the rock and a slender tree grew, its leaves shimmering with soft light. It hummed with a sound like wind through Earth's pines. "This is not a weapon," Torin said. "It is a choice." The Arbiter studied the tree. "You ask us to join you? After war?" "We ask you to see us," Voss said. "Not as threats, not as children to control, but as equals." She stepped forward and held up the data chip, the one she smuggled from the prison. "You lied about us. You made us the enemy so you could stay in power, but truth does not burn. It grows." Athena had already sent the full records to every species in the galaxy. The proof was out. Denial was useless. Crow opened the wooden box. Inside was not a device, not a bomb, but soil, real Earth soil, dark and rich. He let a handful fall onto the platform. "This is where we come from. Dirt, water, and dreams. We build not because we want to rule, but because we cannot stop imagining better." Silence followed. Not the silence of fear, but of thought. Then from the Krelix section, a figure stepped down. It was Vrex, the young guard who had unlocked Voss's door. He carried no weapon. In his hands was a small vial of methane mixed with Earth rainwater, a gift. "I heard your songs," he said in rough standard. "They made me remember my mother's voice. I do not want to fight you." One by one, others moved. A Vorthai elder touched the tree's leaves and whispered, "We forgot beauty." A Zintra envoy, ashamed, bowed its head and offered its ship's logs as apology. The High Arbiter's light flickered. For the first time in 10,000 years, it did not speak for the council. It spoke for itself. "What do you want from us?" it asked. Torin looked at the dying star, then back at the Arbiter. "Nothing you cannot give freely. A seat at the table. A voice in the future. Not as subjects. Not as enemies. As partners," he paused. "Or keep fighting. But know this, humanity will not break. We will not hide. And we will never stop believing that even the coldest heart can learn to feel." The vote was called. It was not unanimous. The old powers resisted. But enough said yes. The Concord Accords were rewritten, not by force but by choice. As the meeting ended, the humans did not leave in a warship. They boarded a small vessel shaped like a leaf, grown from the same biometal as the Chimera fleet, but painted with stars from every culture now joining the new alliance. Back on Earth, people did not cheer. They gathered in parks, on rooftops, by rivers, and simply looked up. The war was over. Not with a bang, but with a breath. In the weeks that followed, strange things happened. Krelix engineers helped rebuild Martian farms. Vorthai artists painted murals in Nairobi. Meissler spores were planted in Earth's forests, linking minds across worlds in quiet harmony. The Chimera ships were retired, not scrapped, but turned into schools, hospitals, and libraries that drifted between stars. Lyra Voss returned to teaching, showing young recruits not how to fight, but how to understand. Dr. Crow worked with alien scientists to build a new network, one that shared knowledge, not just data, but wonder. and Rael Torren became Earth's first ambassador to the new Concord, a council where no voice was too small, and no idea too strange. The galaxy had expected humanity to burn bright and fast like a shooting star. Instead, they became the soil, quiet, patient, full of life waiting to rise, and in the end, that was the most unstoppable thing of all.